tardes, queridos amigos que nos dan la oportunidad de entrar hasta sus hogares, de entrar hasta sus trabajos, de entrar hasta sus autos. Pero lo más importante, que nos dan la oportunidad de entrar hasta sus corazones. Bienvenido a Conversación Abierta con el Reverendo Bolívar Flores. Quiero agradecerle a nuestros patrocinadores, al Hospital Clara Más, al Hospital Houston Regional Hospital. Quiero agradecerle infinitamente a Houston Community College, a Rabbi Abed Friedman, a Francine Lafrac de la Frac City y por supuesto a Wendy Nu de Hugo Nu Corporation por darnos a nosotros este apoyo en traerle este programa a la calidad y a la altura que cada uno de ustedes se merecen. En el día de hoy tengo el privilegio y el honor de entrevistar a la directora ejecutiva de una organización de abogacía de leyes del estado de Nueva York que se enfoca en defender a aquellos más vulnerables en todo el estado. Ella es la señora Carter, una experta en este tema de lo que es la justicia no solamente cívica, pero también criminal, y se encuentra en el día de hoy con nosotros. Pero antes de esto, quiero agradecerle a nuestro equipo de trabajo por hacer posible una vez más, un viernes más, un programa a la altura de cada uno de ustedes. A nuestro director, Cristóbal Serrano, a Rita Durán, a Femier Gedeón, a todo ese equipo, Jordana Flores, a Mauri Núñez, que hacen día tras día todo lo posible para traer esta producción todos los viernes con cada uno de ustedes. Así que muchísimas gracias por este privilegio y por este honor. Y con la bendición de nuestro presidente, Reverendo Raúl Ruiz, empezamos este programa pidiéndole al Dios de Abraham, al Dios de Isaac y al Dios de Jacob, que sea Él el que dirija esta entrevista. Así que manténgase en sintonía en nuestro programa. Miss Carter, welcome to Open Conversation with Reverend Flores. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and it's great to be here and good to finally meet you.
You're the executive director of this wonderful organization. Can you talk a little bit about the mission and the vision of the organization that you represent?
Absolutely. So the Legal Aid Society, we are the nation's largest and oldest public defense and civil legal services provider. We handle, my goodness, hundreds of thousands of cases every year. So we impact about 2 million people statewide through our direct representation, which is what we do in courts, our advocacy efforts that we do in Albany, and then our community work that we do as well. We have about 450,000 people a year that we impact with our holistic services in criminal, civil, and juvenile courts. So we handle all of the public defense in all 5 boroughs. We have about 24 different civil lanes, everything from employment, tax, healthcare, immigration, housing in our civil courts. And then 90% of all of the cases in juvenile and family courts are ours. We also have an affirmative litigation team in each of the criminal, civil, and juvenile rights practices, which means that we file class action lawsuits. So all of the cases that you've seen, for example, around Rikers Jail and people who are incarcerated and who die in the jail, those are our lawsuits. We also have policy and advocacy teams for each of our criminal, civil, and juvenile rights practices as well. So that means that we work in Albany on legislation, and we also have a lot of work that we do in the community with our community partners and allies.
Ms. Carter, can you describe what's the process to somebody qualified to have a representation for the organization that you represent?
That's a great question. I would say that our mission is that no New Yorker should be denied access to justice. And because of that, we serve low-income New Yorkers. And to become eligible for our services, you need to have at or below 200% of the federal poverty guideline. So low-income families and individuals are how we receive the people that we serve, and we do intakes with people who are either accused of a crime, they're facing deportation, they're facing losing custody of their children, for example, they need help with taxes or whatever their needs are. We'll do an intake with them and determine that they're financially eligible for our services, and then we provide representation and support at no cost.
So, because the different executive order that President Donald Trump signed and what happened with the immigration situation, how increased your clientele right now?
That's also a really great question. So as you may know, a lot of the people that we serve in a lot of lower income communities are really scared right now at the number and just scope of the different executive orders that are coming out of the federal administration. So our mandates certainly have increased. We do have free helplines for folks to call if they need assistance around housing or immigration. And certainly there's resources on our website. Our website is www.legalaidnyc.org, or you can certainly call our phone number as well. But if you go on our website, you'll be able to see all of the resources that are available around immigration and others, services that we provide. To your question around the executive orders, it has created a lot of anxiety, certainly for our new neighbors. So folks who are coming to New York, who are seeking refuge, asylum, they're seeking help. You know, the American dream is for everyone to be able to come here and have a better life for themselves and for their families. And unless you're Native American, you certainly came from somewhere else and also have experienced that. So we certainly support all other populations of people that also want to come to America and to New York to seek a better life. What we're seeing are attacks and concerns on a number of fronts. One of them being just if you're a victim of crime and you don't feel comfortable going into the courthouse or into the police station to report what's happened to you. So that's a big problem for people who are experiencing any sort of hardship as a victim, feeling like they can't go in and report what's happened to them for fear of maybe being detained. We're also seeing attacks that are not just happening. I know the rhetoric on the news is around violent offenders, but I want to be very clear that it's not about folks who are accused of violence. And I also just want to be clear that someone who's accused of a crime or accused of any wrongdoing, we have due process in this country. And that means that it has to be proven by the government. We do not subscribe. This country was not founded upon principles where you get to just round people up on the street and do things to them without a process. Our Constitution requires it, and it's certainly something that we protect and we want to make sure is preserved in all forms. We're also seeing it with regards to undocumented people who are in the process of seeking asylum or in the process of seeking some sort of temporary status, that those efforts are now being really challenged, if not halted completely. We also see that folks that are being picked up and detained are lawful permanent residents, folks with green cards. These are taxpayers. These are our neighbors. These are folks that came to New York and to our country and want to provide, a good lifestyle for their families, and they're paying taxes, and they've done the process of going through and getting some paperwork. They're also being rounded up. So that's very scary for people who are saying, hey, I did it the right way, and I'm also being detained. One high-profile case is Mr. Khalil's case now, who was speaking out on Columbia University, regardless of how people feel about the speech that he, gave or his beliefs in this country. We have never rounded people up for just having their freedom of speech being used in that way. And this is a person who is a lawful permanent resident. So again, causing great concerns for us. We're seeing that these executive orders are making it harder for people to be able to obtain assistance from attorneys and to get the paperwork that they need to be able to complete the legal process that we want people to go through. We also see it with regards to having statuses revoked, again, without due process and without being able to be heard on those matters. The Laken-Riley Act is a new legislation that came at the federal level, which says that undocumented people can be detained just for an arrest of a low-level offense and an allegation. So shoplifting, for example, misdemeanor shoplifting, stealing a candy bar, now is a way that someone who's undocumented could find themselves detained and facing deportation. Again, just stripping away all of the principles of due process of what our Constitution requires.
Ms. Carter, can you explain a little bit about the privacy between the clients and the lawyer? It's a lot of information there. People sometimes don't receive the clarification, understand very well the privacy, how the lawyer represents, and how the lawyer share information with the government. Can you explain a little bit about?
I absolutely can, and I really appreciate you raising that, because the Legal Aid Society and other civil legal services providers, especially public defenders, because again, public defenders are people who represent and will stand with anyone who's low income in court facing a criminal charge. And that privileged information that you share between the client and the public defender, the lawyer representing them, and it doesn't matter if it's a public defender or not, but if you have a lawyer and you're their client, not someone that you're just asking advice from on the street or you've reached out to a friend, but someone who actually represents you on a particular legal matter, you do have confidentiality with that lawyer. There are very, very, very rare exceptions that allow a lawyer to be able to repeat anything that the client says to them without permission. And those rare exceptions are really, really like if someone threatens to go and shoot up, a grocery store, and they tell me that as their lawyer, and I have a very reasonable belief to believe that that is actually going to happen and it's going to happen imminently, then I have some ethical duties that require that I need to obviously alert the authorities. But even with that, the protections and the obligation that I have to my client are one of the strongest protections in this country. The Sixth Amendment guarantees every United States citizen and anyone else who's afforded our constitutional protections the right to have effective assistance of counsel. And that means that that person typically is taking everything you tell them to the grave.
Thank you so much. Can we go to a commercial and come back?
Of course.
By the way, you are a great speaker. You dress very well. You are a great speaker. You're the best lawyer I know in my life. So congratulations. You do a great job. Vamos a unos cortes comerciales y regresamos conversando con esta experta en lo que es estos temas tan importantes legales, no solamente lo civil, no solamente lo migratorio, pero su defensa y su extraordinario trabajo para los residentes de Nueva York. Así que manténgase en sintonía con nosotros y regresamos en breve. El Sabor del Café Restaurant está ubicado en el 31 de la Martin Luther King en Jersey City, Nueva Jersey 07305. A través de la experiencia y dedicación de su chef Cándido Ortiz, usted puede disfrutar de una gama de comida latinoamericana. Así que les invitamos al Sabor del Café a probar esta gama de comida del chef Ortiz. Cuando se habla de belleza y se habla de buen tratamiento para tu pelo, debe visitar Kaylee's Salon, ubicado en el 28 de la Martin Luther King Drive en Jersey City, Nueva Jersey. A través de la dirección de su directora ejecutiva, Yamile Martínez, puede contactarse al 201-687-4266. Para una buena cabellera, para un buen pelo saludable, visite a Kaylee's Salon. Bienvenido una vez más a su programa Conversando con el Reverendo Bolívar Flores. En el día de hoy, una vez más, me siento privilegiado y honrado de entrevistar a una prestigiosa abogada de Nueva York, la señora Carter, quien se encarga en ayudar a las personas más desafortunadas con servicios legales. Su abogacía va más allá de simplemente una representación, sino que también provee recursos críticos conectándonos a esta población con un sinnúmero de servicios. Ella es la directora ejecutiva de Abogados Gratuitos de Nueva York y se encuentra en el día de hoy con nosotros. Así que continuamos en esta entrevista. Miss Carter, we see that the domestic violence increasing. It's a lot of cases and people need a representation, but also people don't have a lot of access or a lot of information. What type of service you provided to this population?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. So we actually see it from both sides of the issue. Folks who are accused of committing any sort of domestic violence crime, we would then represent them in court as their attorneys. But we also do support domestic violence survivors. We have a unit that supports domestic violence survivors that allows us to assist them with regaining certain benefits if it was tied to a spouse, and it doesn't matter if it's man or woman or same sex, but if their loss of services and needs that came pursuant to a situation that would be deemed a domestic violence situation, then we do help the survivors of such acts be able to reconnect, if you will, back to services, family, etc.
Ms. Carter, you're a great speaker again. I can't stop saying that, but you are a great speaker. What's that message you want to send to the clergy? Why is important the clergy partnership with your organization?
It's extremely important for the clergy and the faith community to partner and support the Legal Aid Society because we have the same shared mission, servicing low-income communities and communities in need. And that means whether they're charged with the crime, we understand mercy and forgiveness.
Amen.
Whether they need services like more supports because they have a drug misuse problem, they need mercy and services. We have criminalized mental health, we've criminalized drug misuse, and we've criminalized poverty. Because one of the most important institutions in this country and in New York are our churches and our faith community, it is extremely important because we're serving the same population of people, low-income communities, communities of color, communities in need. And because of that, and because of the influence and the access that the faith community and in particular faith leaders have to so many people, on Sunday and every other day of the week when we talk about what God and Jesus and whomever you may believe in, when we talk about those good tenets of serving the poor, serving our community and serving humanity, it includes then actual action with regards to the legal system and our civil legal systems as well. What does that look like? It means supporting us in our efforts for more funding and resources. For the Legal Aid Society, just by way of an example, because there are many organizations in New Jersey that also provide the same services that we do. But in New York, for example, the NYPD has an $11 billion budget. The NYPD has 30 times the budget just to get to the point of an arrest that I have for the entire criminal legal system and the entire civil legal system. 30 times my budget. And that doesn't count the prosecutors, the courts, corrections, or every other piece of the system. So when faith leaders are talking about mercy and forgiveness and talking about due process and talking about all the tenets that I know I try to live my life by because I believe no human being should be defined by their worst decision, and we judge other people's decisions without knowing what their choices were. So we are perfectly aligned with the faith community, and we could really use your support in fighting for more funding and more resources as the mandate of need continues to increase.
Ms. Carter, how someone can be in contact with you to receive your service?
To receive our services, you can just go into any of the courthouses actually and find out the intake dates on the boroughs, in the boroughs that you might be in, whether it's for criminal or civil legal services or even our juvenile and family court services that we provide. Again, you can go to our website at www.legalaidnyc.org. You'll be able to see all of the different 40 or so units that we offer and services that we provide. You'll be able to find out when we're having particular intake days at the courthouses so that you can go in and screen to be eligible for our services. And then we will review your materials and then assign an attorney to be able to assist you. Unfortunately, we can't take every single case because the need is so great. So because of that, we do have free helplines that people can call, and you can get that information on our website as well. But those are helplines where we have people who staff the phone literally and just take calls throughout the day for certain hours in the day to just help people over the phone, even if we're not able to take your case.
Ms. Carter, on behalf of our 475 churches, we are grateful to you and to the entire public defender for the great work that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for your support and appreciate it.
Tuvimos una extraordinaria entrevista con la señora Carter, experta en los temas legales, que nos acompañó en el día de hoy. Quiero agradecerle a cada uno de ustedes por darnos el privilegio, el honor de entrar hasta sus hogares y hasta sus casas, a nuestro equipo, por una vez más poner una producción a la altura de cada uno de ustedes con estas informaciones extraordinarias sobre representación legal completamente gratis, específicamente en estos días tan oscuros y con estas órdenes tan demoníacas que salen de la misma oficina oval. Desde aquí nos despedimos con cada uno de ustedes recordándoles que nuestro próximo programa, el próximo viernes, viene a la altura de cada uno de ustedes. Gracias por este privilegio, gracias por este honor, gracias por permitirnos compartir con ustedes y gracias por darnos a nosotros la oportunidad de entrar hasta sus hogares hasta sus trabajos, pero lo más importante, por darnos la oportunidad de entrar hasta sus corazones. Bendiciones. El Sabor del Café Restaurant está ubicado en el 31 de la Martin Luther King en Jersey City, Nueva Jersey 07305. A través de la experiencia y dedicación de su chef Cándido Ortiz, usted puede disfrutar de una gama de comida latinoamericana. Así que les invitamos al Sabor del Café a probar esta gama de comida del chef Ortiz. Cuando se habla de belleza y se habla de buen tratamiento para tu pelo, debe visitar Kaylee's Salon, ubicado en el 28 de la Martin Luther King Drive en Jersey City, Nueva Jersey, a través de la dirección de su directora ejecutiva, Yamile Martínez. Puede contactarse al 201-687-4266. Para una buena cabellera, para un buen pelo saludable, visite a Kaylee.